How often do you find yourself replaying moments from the past, wishing you could change something or holding onto regrets that weigh you down? Marcus Aurelius once said, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's a reminder of life's fleeting nature, a truth that can feel unsettling at first, but also incredibly liberating. What if the key to moving forward isn't about forgetting the past, but learning how to release its grip on you? This is where Stoicism steps in, not as a rigid philosophy of suppression, but as a powerful tool for emotional resilience and growth. Today, we'll explore 25 Stoic rules designed to help you let go of what no longer serves you and embrace the present moment with clarity and purpose. These principles aren't just theoretical, they're practical, actionable, and rooted in centuries of wisdom. Whether you're carrying the weight of a past mistake, a lost opportunity, or a painful memory, this video will guide you toward a lighter, more intentional way of living. So, are you ready to step into the present and discover the freedom that comes with letting go? Let's begin. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers is the ability to distinguish between what's within our control and what isn't. This principle, often called the dichotomy of control, is like a mental compass. It helps us navigate life's storms without letting external chaos dictate our inner peace. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." It sounds simple, but this idea is revolutionary when you truly apply it. Think about it. How much time and energy do we waste worrying about things we can't change? The past, for instance, is completely out of our hands. We can't rewrite it, undo it, or change how others perceive it. What we can do is control how we respond to it, how we learn, grow, and move forward. Take something as common as a failed job interview. It's easy to spiral into regret, thinking, "If only I'd said this differently," or "What if they didn't like me?" But here's the truth. You can't control their decision, their biases, or even the competition you were up against. What you can control is how you prepare for the next opportunity, how you refine your skills, and how you choose to see the experience, not as a failure, but as a stepping stone. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's something in your life you've been trying to control that's ultimately beyond your power? Maybe it's a past mistake, a relationship that didn't work out, or even the opinions of others. The Stoic approach invites us to let go of these burdens and redirect our energy toward what truly matters: our thoughts, our actions, and our choices. When we do this, we don't just free ourselves from unnecessary stress, we reclaim our power to shape the present and the future. Can you change what's already happened? The answer, of course, is no. Yet, how much of our energy do we spend wishing we could? Stoicism teaches us that the past is unchangeable, a fixed reality that no amount of regret, guilt, or longing can alter. As Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What he's pointing to is this: when we dwell on what's already happened, we're not reliving the past, we're creating new suffering in the present. Think about it. Imagine you made a mistake in a relationship. Maybe you said something hurtful, or you missed an important moment. It's natural to feel regret, but what happens when that regret turns into a cycle of self-blame or what-ifs? You're no longer dealing with the past itself. You're caught in a loop of mental replay, and that loop can steal your peace, your focus, and even your ability to move forward. This is where acceptance comes in. Acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with what happened or that you're excusing it. It simply means you're acknowledging the reality of it. You're saying, "This happened, I can't change it, but I can choose how I respond to it." When you stop fighting the past, you free up energy to focus on what you can control: your actions, your mindset, and your next steps. So take a moment to reflect. Is there something in your past that's still holding you back? What would it feel like to let go of the struggle against what's already done? Remember, the past is fixed, but your future isn't. By accepting what you can't change, you open the door to what you can. Here's the next section of the script following the outline segment for Rule 3. One of the most powerful tools in Stoicism is the ability to practice cognitive detachment, the art of separating our emotions from the events of the past. Think about it. How often do we let a single moment, a single mistake, or a single hurtful word linger in our minds, shaping how we feel about ourselves or others? Stoics would argue that these emotions aren't caused by the event itself, but by the judgments we attach to it. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. What he's pointing to is this idea that while we can't control what happens to us, we can control how we interpret it. So, how do we start practicing this kind of detachment? Begin by revisiting a past event that still stirs up strong emotions for you. Instead of letting those feelings take the wheel, try to step back and observe the situation as if you were an outsider. Ask yourself, what actually happened? What did I assume about it? And most importantly, are those assumptions serving me now, or are they holding me back? A practical way to do this is through journaling. Write about the event in as much detail as possible, but this time leave out the emotional charge. Describe it as if you're a historian documenting facts, not a participant reliving the experience. You might notice something surprising. What once felt like a crushing weight might start to feel lighter, less personal, and more manageable. This exercise isn't about denying your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about creating space between what happened and how you choose to respond to it. By doing this, you're not erasing the past, you're reframing it. And in that reframing, there's freedom, the freedom to let go, to heal, and to move forward with clarity. Take a moment to reflect. How might this kind of detachment change the way you see your past? What could you gain by loosening the grip of those old judgments? This passage introduces cognitive detachment in a way that's both practical and relatable, blending Stoic philosophy with actionable advice. It avoids repetitive phrasing, uses a mix of explanation and reflection, and keeps the tone warm yet authoritative. Picture this: someone sitting at a window staring out at the world, but their mind is miles away, replaying old conversations, regrets, or missed opportunities. Life is happening all around them, friends laughing, the sun setting, a child playing, but they're completely disconnected, lost in a past they can't change. It's a haunting image, isn't it? And yet, so many of us live this way, letting the present slip through our fingers while we're busy drowning in what's already gone. The Stoics had a profound answer to this. The present moment is all we truly have. As Epictetus once said, we should not be so busy with what has happened or what is to come that we forget to live in the here and now. Think about that for a second. The past is gone, irrevocably so. The future, it's uncertain, always just out of reach, but the present, this moment, right now, is where your power lies. It's the only place where you can take action, make choices, and truly live. Let's bring this idea down to earth. Imagine your morning routine. Maybe it's sipping a cup of coffee, feeling the warmth of the mug in your hands, hearing the birds outside, or simply breathing in the quiet before the day begins. These are small moments, but they're rich with life if you let yourself notice them. Yet, how often do we rush through these routines, our minds preoccupied with yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's worries? Here's a challenge for you. As you go through your day, pause, notice the little things. Maybe it's the taste of your lunch, the sound of rain tapping on the window, or even the way your feet feel as you walk. These moments are gifts, and by focusing on them, you reclaim your power from the past and future. So, what's one moment you've overlooked lately because you were too caught up in what's already happened? How can you bring yourself back to the present, even for just a few seconds? The Stoics weren't saying to ignore the past or disregard the future entirely. They were urging us to recognize where our control lies. The past can teach us and the future can inspire us, but the present is where we act, where we live. And that's where true freedom begins. Every experience we have, whether it feels like a triumph or a setback, carries with it a lesson waiting to be uncovered. The Stoics believed that life's challenges aren't punishments or misfortunes, but opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. As Seneca once said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Think about that for a moment. Adversity isn't something to run from, it's something to embrace because it shapes who we are and prepares us for what's ahead. Take Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoic philosophers. He didn't lead an easy life. As Emperor of Rome, he faced wars, political unrest, and personal loss. Yet he didn't see these struggles as obstacles. Instead, he viewed them as chances to practice virtue, patience, and resilience. His writings in Meditations show how he reframed every hardship as a teacher, reminding himself that even the toughest moments were part of his growth. So, what about you? What lessons has your past taught you? Maybe it's a failure that pushed you to work harder, a loss that showed you what truly matters, or a mistake that taught you a valuable truth about yourself. The key is to shift your perspective, not to dwell on what went wrong, but to ask, what can I take from this? When you start seeing your past as a classroom rather than a courtroom, you'll find that every experience, no matter how difficult, has something to offer. This isn't about ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding meaning in what happened and using it to move forward with greater clarity and purpose. The past doesn't define you, it refines you if you let it. So, what's one lesson your past has taught you that you can carry into the future? Resentment is like carrying a heavy anchor from the past, one that keeps us tethered to pain and prevents us from moving forward. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that holding on to anger and resentment doesn't harm the person who wronged us, it harms us. Epictetus once said, "To forgive others is to set yourself free from the prison of anger." Think about that for a moment. When we refuse to let go of resentment, we're the ones who suffer, not the person who hurt us. We become prisoners of our own emotions, reliving the pain over and over again. But forgiveness, according to Stoic philosophy, isn't about excusing someone else's behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about freeing ourselves from the weight of bitterness. Imagine a friend who betrayed your trust. It hurts and the betrayal may have left scars, but holding onto that resentment only keeps the wound open. Forgiveness in this context becomes an act of self-care, a way to reclaim your peace and move forward without being chained to the past. Here's a question to reflect on. Who in your life might you need to forgive? Not for their sake, but for yours. It could be someone close to you or even yourself for past mistakes. The act of letting go doesn't mean forgetting or condoning what happened. It means choosing to no longer let that pain define you. As you consider this, remember that forgiveness is a process, not a single moment. It's a step toward inner peace and a lighter, more liberated way of living. Life is a constant flow of change, and nothing stays the same forever. This is the essence of impermanence, a core Stoic principle that reminds us everything in life is temporary. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This isn't meant to be morbid. It's a call to recognize the fleeting nature of our experiences and possessions. When we truly grasp that nothing lasts, we can stop clinging so tightly to what we think we need or what we fear losing. Think about it. Have you ever faced a major life change, like losing a job or ending a relationship? In those moments, it's easy to feel like the world is collapsing around you. But what if, instead of resisting the change, you embraced the idea that this moment, like all others, is temporary? Impermanence teaches us that even the most painful experiences will pass. The job you lost might lead to an opportunity you never imagined. The relationship that ended could make space for something more fulfilling. By accepting that nothing is permanent, you free yourself from the weight of trying to control the uncontrollable. This doesn't mean you shouldn't care about what happens in your life. It's about shifting your perspective. When you stop seeing setbacks as permanent failures and start viewing them as part of life's natural ebb and flow, you'll find it easier to let go and move forward. Impermanence isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a practical tool for resilience. It helps you navigate uncertainty with a sense of calm, knowing that whatever you're facing won't last forever. So, the next time life throws you a curveball, ask yourself, how might embracing impermanence help me find peace in this moment? Gratitude is a powerful tool, not just for feeling good in the moment, but for reshaping how we see the world. When we focus on what we've lost or what's no longer within our reach, it's easy to feel stuck, weighed down by regret or longing. But gratitude pulls us back to the present. It reminds us of what we still have, what's still here, and what's still possible. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't just preach gratitude, they practiced it as a way to stay grounded, to anchor themselves in the here and now. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." That's the essence of gratitude. It's about finding joy in the present moment, not because everything is perfect, but because there's always something worth appreciating. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your face, the sound of a loved one's laughter, or even the simple fact that you're alive and breathing. Gratitude doesn't erase the challenges or the pain of the past, but it shifts our focus, helping us see the abundance that's already around us. So how can you start cultivating this mindset? One practical way is through a daily gratitude practice. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just take a few moments each day to reflect on what you're thankful for. Maybe it's something small, like a good cup of coffee in the morning, or something bigger, like the support of a friend during a tough time. The key is consistency. Over time, this practice trains your mind to look for the good, even in difficult moments. Here's an exercise to try right now. Pause for a moment and think of 3 things you're grateful for today. They don't have to be grand or life-changing, just genuine. It could be as simple as a kind word someone shared with you, a moment of peace you experienced, or even the opportunity to learn and grow from your past. By doing this, you're not ignoring what's happened before. You're simply choosing to focus on what's still here, what's still working, and what's still beautiful. That's the power of gratitude. It doesn't change the past, but it can change how you feel about the present, and that's where true freedom lies. Why do we so often measure our worth by what others think of us? Whether it's clinging to past successes or dwelling on old failures, many of us tie our sense of self to external validation. But here's the thing, Stoicism teaches us that true validation doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly when he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, your value isn't determined by how others see you, but by how you see yourself. Think about it. How often do you find yourself scrolling through social media, comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel, or replaying a past conversation, wondering if you said the right thing to gain someone's approval? These are all forms of seeking external validation, and they can trap us in a cycle of insecurity. Stoicism challenges us to break free from that cycle by focusing on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and character. Here's a practical example. Imagine someone who posts a photo online and constantly checks for likes and comments. Each notification gives them a temporary boost, but what happens when the likes stop? They're left feeling empty, right? Stoicism would ask, why not find that sense of fulfillment within yourself? Why not measure your worth by your own standards, by the effort you put into being a good person, by the way you treat others, or by the progress you make toward your goals? So let's take a moment to reflect. Where do you seek validation? Is it from your job title, your social media following, or the opinions of others? What would it feel like to let go of that need and instead focus on cultivating your own inner strength? The Stoics believed that self-sufficiency is the key to lasting peace, and it's a lesson worth revisiting, especially in a world that's constantly telling us to seek approval. The next time you feel the pull of external validation, remember, your worth isn't something others can give or take away, it's something you already have. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics gave us to free ourselves from fear and regret is something called negative visualization. It might sound counterintuitive at first. Why would we want to imagine worst-case scenarios? But here's the thing, when we confront the possibility of loss or hardship head-on, we strip it of its power to paralyze us. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, put it this way: what is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. The fact that it was unforeseen has never failed to intensify a person's grief. In other words, by imagining the worst, we prepare ourselves emotionally so that if it ever happens, we're not caught off guard. And more often than not, we realize that we're stronger than we think. Let's take a practical example. Imagine for a moment losing someone you love deeply. It's a painful thought, but sit with it. What would you do? How would you move forward? The Stoics aren't asking you to dwell on this to make you miserable. They're inviting you to recognize that even in the face of such loss, life goes on. You would find a way to carry on, to honor their memory, to live meaningfully. And in realizing that, you might also notice how much you take for granted in the present. Suddenly, the little annoyances, traffic, a missed promotion, a rude comment lose their grip on you. This practice isn't about pessimism, it's about empowerment. When we visualize the worst, we're not inviting it into our lives. We're reminding ourselves that we have the strength to endure no matter what comes our way. And that realization can be incredibly freeing. So here's a challenge. Try it today. Think of something you fear losing and walk through it in your mind. How would you respond? What would you learn about yourself? You might just find that the fear of the unknown starts to loosen its hold, leaving you more present, more grateful, and more resilient than ever before. Let's talk about Rule 11. Focus on virtue over outcomes. This is where Stoicism shifts our perspective in a profound way. It's not about what happens to us, but how we respond. The Stoics believed that the highest good isn't wealth, fame, or even success. It's virtue. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, your character, your integrity, your moral compass, these are the things that truly matter. External outcomes, they're often beyond your control. But your virtue, that's entirely within your power. Think about it this way. If you've ever obsessed over a past failure, maybe a project that didn't go as planned or a goal you didn't achieve, it's easy to get stuck in regret. But the Stoic approach flips the script. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, ask yourself, did I act with integrity? Did I do my best, even if the result wasn't what I hoped for? When you focus on virtue over outcomes, you free yourself from the weight of past mistakes. You realize that what truly defines you isn't the end result, but the quality of your actions along the way. Here's a modern example to bring this to life. Imagine you're in a heated debate with someone. The temptation might be to win the argument, to prove your point no matter the cost. But what if instead you prioritize honesty and respect? Even if the conversation doesn't go your way, you walk away knowing you acted with dignity. That's the Stoic mindset in action. It's about aligning your choices with your values, not just chasing outcomes. So let's take a moment to reflect. What's more important to you, achieving a specific goal or knowing you acted with virtue and integrity to get there? The Stoics would argue that focusing on the latter not only helps you let go of the past, but also builds a foundation for a more meaningful future. It's a subtle shift, but one that can transform how you see yourself and your journey. Have you ever noticed how much of your emotional energy is tied to the things you own? That favorite jacket, the phone you can't live without, or even the car you've had for years, these objects often become extensions of who we are. But here's the Stoic perspective: material possessions are indifferent. They don't hold inherent value in shaping our happiness or virtue. Epictetus put it perfectly when he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, the less we depend on things, the freer we become. Think about it for a moment. What happens when you lose something you value deeply? Maybe it's a piece of jewelry passed down through generations or a gadget you've saved up for months to buy. The initial reaction is often frustration, sadness, or even anger. But over time, you adapt, life goes on. That's the Stoic reminder: our attachment to possessions is often more about the stories we attach to them than the items themselves. They're fleeting, impermanent, and ultimately out of our control. So here's a challenge: take a mental inventory of the things you're holding onto too tightly. Are they serving your growth, or are they anchoring you to the past? The Stoics teach us to appreciate what we have without letting it define us. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning what you own. It means releasing the emotional grip those things have on you. When you do that, you create space for what truly matters: your inner peace and your ability to move forward, unburdened by the weight of material attachments. Life doesn't always bend to our will, does it? No matter how much we try to control it, there's a natural order to things that often feels beyond our grasp. This is where Rule 13 comes into play: accept the natural order of life. The Stoics believed that life unfolds according to nature, not our personal desires. It's not about giving up or surrendering. It's about aligning ourselves with the rhythms of existence rather than fighting against them. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. In other words, life will move forward whether we're ready for it or not. The question is, are we willing to flow with it, or will we exhaust ourselves resisting? Think about something as inevitable as aging. We can spend years trying to hold on to youth, fighting the natural progression of time, or we can embrace each stage of life with grace and gratitude. Aging isn't a failure, it's a testament to the beauty of change, a reminder that life is constantly in motion. Now, take a moment to reflect: where in your life are you resisting the natural order? Are you clinging to a situation, a relationship, or even an idea of how things should be? The Stoics would encourage you to let go of that tension. When we stop trying to force life into our own mold, we create space for peace and clarity. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means recognizing what's within our control and what isn't, and choosing to move forward with wisdom rather than frustration. This principle isn't just about aging or time. It applies to every aspect of life: careers, relationships, even the unexpected twists and turns we face. When we align ourselves with the natural flow, we stop wasting energy on what we can't change and start focusing on what we can. And that's where true growth begins. Stoicism often gets misunderstood as a philosophy of cold, unfeeling discipline, a relentless grind where you're supposed to suppress your emotions and criticize yourself into becoming better. But that's not the whole picture. At its core, Stoicism is about balance, and part of that balance is practicing self-compassion. It's not about beating yourself up for every mistake you've made in the past. It's about learning from those moments with kindness and understanding. Think about it. How can you move forward if you're constantly dragging yourself down with guilt and regret? Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But here's the key: being strict with yourself doesn't mean being cruel. It means holding yourself accountable while also recognizing your humanity. After all, we're all works in progress, and mistakes are part of the journey. Imagine treating yourself the way you'd treat a close friend who's struggling. You wouldn't berate them for their failures. You'd offer support, encouragement, and a reminder that they're capable of growth. Why not extend that same compassion to yourself? Here's a practical exercise to help you cultivate self-compassion. Take a moment to write a letter to your past self. Reflect on a time when you made a decision you now regret or faced a challenge that felt overwhelming. Instead of focusing on what you did wrong, write as if you're speaking to someone you deeply care about. What advice would you give? What reassurance would you offer? This exercise isn't about dwelling on the past, it's about reframing it in a way that fosters healing and growth. And while you're at it, pay attention to your self-talk. Are you quick to judge yourself for every misstep? Do you hold yourself to impossibly high standards? Self-compassion starts with recognizing those patterns and gently shifting them. When you catch yourself spiraling into negativity, pause and ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, it's time to rewrite the script. Letting go of the past isn't about pretending it didn't happen or ignoring the lessons it holds. It's about approaching it with a mindset of understanding and forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself. When you practice self-compassion, you create the emotional space to move forward without carrying the weight of self-blame. And that, as the Stoics would remind us, is where true freedom lies. How much time have you spent replaying a past mistake in your mind, wishing you could go back and change it? We've all been there, stuck in a loop of regret, reliving moments we can't undo. But here's the thing: Stoicism teaches us that dwelling on regret is not only unproductive, it's also a barrier to moving forward. As Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In other words, the past is out of your control, but your response to it is entirely within your power. Think about it. What does regret actually achieve? It doesn't fix the mistake. It doesn't change the outcome. All it does is keep you anchored to a moment that's already gone. Let's say you missed a big opportunity at work. Maybe you didn't speak up in a meeting, or you hesitated when you should have acted. It's easy to beat yourself up over it, but what if, instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you used that experience as a lesson? What if you shifted your focus to what you can do differently next time? This is the Stoic approach: acknowledging the mistake, learning from it, and then letting it go. It's not about ignoring the past, it's about refusing to let it dictate your present or future. So, take a moment to reflect. What's one regret you've been holding onto? How can you reframe it as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block? The past doesn't define you unless you allow it to. By focusing on what you can control, your actions, your mindset, your growth, you free yourself to move forward with clarity and purpose. Perfectionism might seem like a noble pursuit, but it often becomes a chain that ties us to past mistakes and unmet expectations. The Stoics understood this well. They believed that striving for perfection isn't just unrealistic, it's a distraction from the real goal, progress. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What he meant was that our fear of not being perfect, of failing, often holds us back more than the actual act of trying. And isn't that true? How many times have you hesitated to start something because you were afraid it wouldn't be flawless? Think about a modern example: an artist sitting in front of a blank canvas, terrified to make the first stroke because they're worried it won't be a masterpiece. But here's the thing: Stoicism teaches us that the masterpiece isn't in the perfection of the final product. It's in the act of creating, in the courage to begin despite the fear. Every stroke, every attempt is a step forward. Progress, not perfection, is what truly matters. Now, take a moment to reflect. Where in your life are you holding yourself to an impossible standard? Are you avoiding starting a project, pursuing a dream, or even making a decision because you're waiting for the perfect moment? The Stoics would remind you that there's no such thing. Life is messy, and that's okay. What's important is that you keep moving, keep learning, and keep growing. Let go of the need to be perfect and instead embrace the beauty of the imperfect journey. By releasing the grip of perfectionism, you free yourself from the weight of past failures and open the door to new possibilities. It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about showing up, trying, and trusting that each step, no matter how small, is moving you forward. Change is the one constant in life, and yet it's something many of us resist. We cling to what's familiar, even when it no longer serves us, because the unknown can feel unsettling. But the Stoics had a different perspective. They saw change not as a threat, but as an opportunity, a chance to grow, adapt, and become stronger. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." In other words, the way we think about change determines whether it becomes a source of fear or a catalyst for growth. Think about it. Every significant shift in your life has likely brought something valuable, even if it didn't feel that way at first. Maybe you moved to a new city, started a new job, or ended a relationship. At the time, it might have seemed overwhelming or even devastating, but looking back, you can probably see how those changes shaped you. They forced you to adapt, to learn new skills, to develop resilience. That's the Stoic mindset, viewing change as a teacher rather than an enemy. Consider the example of moving to a new city. At first, it might feel lonely and disorienting. You're in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by strangers, and everything feels different. But over time, you start to find your footing. You'll make new friends, discover new opportunities, and maybe even uncover strengths you didn't know you had. The discomfort of change becomes the foundation for growth. The Stoics would argue that this is how life works. Change isn't just inevitable, it's necessary. It's the mechanism through which we evolve. So take a moment to reflect on your own life. Can you think of a time when a major change felt like a setback but ultimately led to something positive? Maybe it was a career shift, a health challenge, or even a global event that forced you to rethink your priorities. The Stoic approach is to ask yourself, what did I learn from that experience? How did it make me stronger or wiser? By reframing change as growth, we can stop resisting it and start embracing it as a natural part of life's journey. Let's talk about something we've all wrestled with at some point: the need for closure. It's human nature to want answers, to tie up loose ends, to understand why things happened the way they did. But here's the truth: clinging to that need can trap us in the past, keeping us stuck in a cycle of what-ifs and regrets. The Stoics, however, offer a different approach, one that invites us to find peace even when the answers never come. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." These words might sound simple, but they carry a profound truth. Life is full of uncertainties, and not every situation will come with a neat little bow. Sometimes people won't apologize, sometimes events won't make sense. And sometimes the only way forward is to accept that you may never get the closure you're looking for, and that's okay. Think about a time when you were left hanging. Maybe it was a friendship that ended abruptly, a job opportunity that fell through, or a conflict that was never resolved. How much energy did you spend replaying the situation in your mind, trying to figure out what went wrong or what you could have done differently? The Stoics would argue that this energy is better spent on what you can control: your own mindset and your ability to move forward even without answers. Here's the key: releasing the need for closure doesn't mean you're giving up or that you don't care. It means you're choosing to prioritize your peace over your need for certainty. It's about shifting your focus from what you can't control, like other people's actions or the randomness of life, to what you can control: your response, your perspective, and your decision to let go. So take a moment to reflect. Is there a situation in your life where you're still holding out for closure? What would it feel like to release that need and simply move forward? Sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is to decide that you don't need all the answers to find peace. After all, as the Stoics remind us, the only closure you truly need is the one you give yourself. Here's the next part of the script, following the outline and guidelines provided. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers is the ability to distinguish between what we can control and what we cannot. Think about it. How much of your day is spent worrying about things that are entirely outside your influence? The weather, other people's opinions, or even the traffic on your commute. All of these are external factors that, no matter how much we fret over them, remain unchanged by our efforts. This is where Rule 19 comes in. Focus on your circle of influence. The Stoics believed that our energy is finite, and wasting it on things beyond our control is not just unproductive, it's exhausting. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. In other words, much of our stress and anxiety comes from fixating on what we can't change, rather than directing our efforts toward what we can. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're at work and a big project deadline is looming. You're stressed because your team isn't meeting your expectations, or maybe your boss is being unreasonable. These situations can feel overwhelming, but here's the Stoic approach. Instead of focusing on what others are doing or not doing, shift your attention to what you can control. Maybe it's your own productivity, your attitude, or how you communicate with your team. By refocusing your energy on your circle of influence, you not only reduce stress but also become more effective in tackling the challenges at hand. So, here's a question for you to consider. What's one area in your life where you've been spending energy on things you can't control? Could that energy be better directed towards something within your influence? Take a moment to reflect on this, because the more we practice this principle, the more we reclaim our power to shape our own lives. This section builds on the previous content, introduces a new Stoic rule, and ties it to a relatable modern example while encouraging viewer reflection. It avoids repetitive phrasing and maintains a conversational yet authoritative tone. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools we have for staying grounded in the present moment, especially when we're tempted to dwell on the past or worry about the future. The Stoics understood this deeply, even if they didn't use the word mindfulness as we do today. For them, it was about cultivating a clear, focused awareness of the here and now, free from the distractions of regret or anxiety. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that mindfulness isn't about controlling what happens to us, it's about controlling how we respond to it. By observing our thoughts without judgment, we create a space between what we feel and how we act, a space where we can choose to respond with calm and clarity. So, how can we practice this in our daily lives? One of the easiest ways to start is by focusing on your breath. Take a moment right now to pause and notice the rhythm of your breathing. Feel the air moving in and out, the rise and fall of your chest. If your mind starts to wander, and it will gently bring your attention back to your breath without criticizing yourself. This simple exercise isn't about achieving perfect focus. It's about training your mind to return to the present again and again. What does it feel like to be fully present? For many, it's a sense of calm, a quieting of the mental noise that often overwhelms us. It's a reminder that no matter what's happening around us, we have the ability to anchor ourselves in the now. Mindfulness in this way becomes a form of emotional resilience. It helps us face challenges with a steady mind rather than being swept away by emotions or regrets. The next time you find yourself caught up in thoughts about the past, try this simple practice. Notice how it changes your perspective, even if just for a moment. Mindfulness isn't about erasing difficult emotions or memories. It's about meeting them with a sense of awareness and acceptance. And in that acceptance, we often find the strength to let go and move forward. One of the most insidious ways we keep ourselves tethered to the past is through the habit of comparison. Think about it. When we measure our lives against others, we're often looking backward, at where we think we should be, at what someone else has achieved, or at what we believe we've failed to do. This constant measuring stick doesn't just hold us back, it keeps us stuck in a loop of dissatisfaction and regret. The Stoics, however, had a different approach. They believed that true peace comes from focusing solely on our own path, our own progress, and our own virtues. As Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, the only comparison worth making is the one between who you are today and who you were yesterday. Let's bring this into the modern world. How often do you find yourself scrolling through social media only to feel a pang of envy or inadequacy? Maybe it's a friend's promotion, a colleague's perfect vacation photos, or even a stranger's seemingly flawless life. These moments can feel like tiny anchors pulling us away from our own journey and into a sea of discontent. But here's the thing, those snapshots are just that, snapshots. They don't show the full picture, the struggles, or the sacrifices behind the scenes. When we compare ourselves to these curated moments, we're not just doing ourselves a disservice, we're also ignoring the unique path we're meant to walk. So how do we break free from this cycle? Start by asking yourself, what does success look like for me? Not for my neighbor, not for my coworker, not for the influencer I follow online, but for me. What are my values, my goals, my strengths? When we shift our focus inward, we give ourselves permission to grow at our own pace, to celebrate our own wins, no matter how small they may seem. And remember, this isn't about perfection or reaching some impossible standard. It's about progress, about becoming a little better today than you were yesterday. The next time you catch yourself falling into the comparison trap, take a deep breath and remind yourself, your journey is yours alone, and it's already unfolding exactly as it should. Let go of the need to measure yourself against others, and instead focus on the only person you truly need to compete with the person you were yesterday. No matter what has happened in your life, one truth remains unshakable. You always have the power to choose how you respond. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy when it comes to letting go of the past. It's not about what happens to us, but about how we decide to face it. The Stoics believed that while we can't control every event or circumstance, we can control our reactions. As Seneca wisely put it, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That power of choice is your greatest tool for moving forward. Think about it. When someone wrongs you or when life throws a curveball, you're faced with a decision. Will you hold on to anger, resentment, or regret? Or will you choose a different path, one of forgiveness, growth, or even indifference? The Stoics remind us that we're not victims of our emotions or circumstances. Instead, we're the authors of our own responses. For example, imagine someone who hurt you deeply. You could dwell on the pain, replaying the moment over and over. Or you could choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the peace that comes with letting go. That's the power of choice in action. So, here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life can you exercise this power more intentionally? Maybe it's in how you respond to a past failure or how you handle a relationship that didn't go as planned. The choice is yours always, and that's the beauty of it. By embracing this principle, you take back control, one decision at a time. You're not bound by what's already happened. You're free to shape what comes next. Inner peace is something we often chase, but rarely realize it's not something we find out there. It's something we cultivate within. The Stoics believed that tranquility isn't about the absence of chaos in our lives, but about how we respond to it. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In other words, calm isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create, even in the midst of life's storms. So how do we start building this inner calm? It begins with recognizing that our reactions to external events are entirely within our control. Think about it. Two people can face the same challenge. One feels overwhelmed while the other remains steady. The difference isn't the situation, it's their mindset. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, our choices, our perspective, and let go of what we can't. This shift in focus is the foundation of inner peace. One practical way to practice this is through meditation. It doesn't have to be complicated, just a few minutes a day to sit quietly, focus on your breath, and observe your thoughts without judgment. This simple exercise helps train your mind to detach from external chaos and return to a place of calm. It's like building a mental sanctuary, a space you can retreat to whenever life feels overwhelming. But meditation is just one tool. Inner peace also comes from living in alignment with your values. When you know what truly matters to you, kindness, integrity, growth, and make decisions based on those principles, you create a sense of harmony within yourself. You stop being tossed around by the opinions of others or the unpredictability of life. Instead, you anchor yourself in what's meaningful to you. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one small step you can take today to cultivate more inner peace? Maybe it's setting aside 5 minutes for quiet reflection, or perhaps it's letting go of a grudge that's been weighing on you. Whatever it is, remember that peace isn't a destination, it's a practice, one that begins within you. Here's the next section of the script, following the outline segment and adhering to the guidelines. The future can feel like an endless maze of unknowns, and it's natural to feel fear creeping in when we think about what lies ahead. But here's the thing, that fear often doesn't come from the future itself. It comes from our inability to let go of the past. When we're stuck replaying old mistakes, missed opportunities, or painful memories, it becomes harder to face what's next. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this: focus on the present. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: we should always be asking ourselves, is this something that is or is not in my control? Fear of the future is almost always rooted in things outside our control. What might happen? What could go wrong? But the present moment, that's where we have agency, that's where we can act. By grounding ourselves in what's happening right now, we strip away the layers of anxiety that the future tries to pile on. Think about it this way. Imagine you're facing a career crossroads. Maybe you're worried about whether you'll find the right job or if you'll succeed in a new role. That fear isn't about the future. It's about the stories you're telling yourself, often shaped by past experiences. Maybe you've been let down before, or you've struggled with self-doubt. But right now, in this moment, you have the power to take one small step. Maybe it's updating your resume, reaching out to a mentor, or simply reminding yourself of your strength. The Stoics remind us that fear loses its grip when we stop letting the past dictate our future. Instead of worrying about what might happen, ask yourself, what can I do today to move forward? What's within my control? By focusing on the present, you're not ignoring the future, you're preparing for it with clarity and confidence. So take a moment to reflect. Where in your life are you holding on to fear of the future because of the past? What's one small action you can take today to let go of that fear and step into the present? This passage flows naturally from the previous content, introduces the Stoic perspective with authority, and uses a relatable example to engage the audience. It avoids repetitive phrasing and maintains a warm, empathetic tone while providing actionable advice. One of the most transformative habits we can cultivate is daily reflection, a practice the Stoics held in high regard. Think of it as a mental reset, a way to process the day's events, release what no longer serves us, and prepare for what lies ahead. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, emphasized this when he wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." This nightly ritual was his way of holding himself accountable, learning from his actions, and finding peace in the stillness. So, what does this look like in practice? Imagine sitting quietly at the end of your day, replaying the moments that stood out, not to dwell on regrets, but to observe without judgment. Did you act in alignment with your values? Were there moments where anger, fear, or distraction took the wheel? Reflection isn't about self-criticism, it's about self-awareness. By reviewing your day, you create space to let go of what's already happened and focus on what you can control moving forward. A simple way to start is through journaling. Take 5 minutes each evening to write down 3 things, one moment you're proud of, one lesson you learned, and one thing you'd like to improve tomorrow. This exercise isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Over time, you'll notice patterns, gain clarity, and develop a deeper understanding of yourself. Reflection becomes a tool for growth, helping you release the weight of the past and step into the future with intention. How might this practice help you? What would it feel like to end each day with a sense of closure, knowing you've processed your experiences and are ready to move forward? The beauty of daily reflection is that it's accessible to everyone, no special tools or expertise required. All it takes is a few moments of quiet and the willingness to look inward. By making this a habit, you're not just letting go of the past, you're actively shaping the person you want to become. As we come to the end of this journey through the 25 Stoic rules for letting go of the past, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on their collective power. These principles, rooted in ancient wisdom, are not just abstract ideas, they are tools designed to help us shed the weight of what's behind us and step boldly into the present. Whether it's accepting what we cannot change, focusing on what's within our control, or finding strength in adversity, each rule is a reminder that our power lies in how we respond to life, not in the circumstances themselves. Together, they form a guidebook for living with clarity, resilience, and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most enduring voices, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be." Be one. These words cut straight to the heart of what Stoicism teaches us. It's not enough to simply understand these rules, we must live them. Virtue, after all, isn't found in knowledge alone, but in action. So, as you reflect on these 25 rules, ask yourself, which ones resonate most deeply with you? Where do you see opportunities to apply them in your own life? Perhaps it's letting go of regret, practicing gratitude, or embracing the present moment. Whatever it is, the key is to start small, to take one step at a time. And now, it's your turn. Which of these Stoic principles speaks to you? How will you bring them into your daily life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how these ideas are shaping your journey. And if you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more insights on Stoicism and practical wisdom. Remember, the past is behind you, but the present is yours to shape. Let's move forward together with intention and strength. Until next time, take care and keep striving for that virtuous life.